Good evening, John-Reid. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
So it is 5:30 where you are, or 6:30?
5:30. Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad that that worked out in my head. Those time zone math is
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
a strong suit of mine. Um so at 5:30 California,
Yep.
right? On a
LA.
Thursday, what's your day been like so far?
Today's actually been fun. We just a minute ago, my parents, who are both musicians, they just left. We had a family jam band that we do like Beatles covers and random stuff. We have like a space in the back. My dad's a guitar player and vocalist. My mom's a vocalist, and I have a kind of a family cousin who's a bass player, and I do drums in that band. Uh,
Whoa.
so yeah, we literally just finished like minutes ago.
That is so sweet. Okay, I have many questions. My first one is like, are you guys like a Google Calendar family? Like, was this a scheduled kind of thing? And was there a group chat involved? How did it come to be?
Yeah, well, my dad's side of the family, everyone does music on his side of the family. Not professionally, only my dad does it and me do it professionally, but everyone else does it as a hobby. And so we used to songs at family parties and stuff, and we said, why don't we just practice some songs instead of just jamming? So yeah, we planned we get together. We usually have a few of the cousins come out to do vocals or different instruments and stuff. And then at all the family all the family parties, we do music there, live music.
Oh my gosh, that's so nice to be able to share that with your
Yeah.
parents. I feel like in my family, it's like my all of my cousins probably have more in common profession or like talent wise with my parents than my sister and I. Were kind of like well, actually not in a ridiculed way, just like we have
Sure.
just a different orientation of our brains. And so for
Yeah,
you to
yeah.
be able to share that pastime and passion is so sweet.
It's very lucky. I mean, they shared it with me, really. I mean, like, I didn't choose to be in the musician family, you know.
That is true. I'm thinking back. Have you ever watched the Brady Bunch?
I know of it, never watched it, I don't think.
I think that they were a like a singing family. Like I think that they were
Oh,
often
okay.
in like matching outfits
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
like grand numbers. And I'm just picturing your modern version of like instruments of all types, a little bit more of like a chill vibe, maybe. I don't know. I'm projecting now into your
Oh, you got
story.
it. I mean, that sounds about right. It's a family band is what we call it. So, I mean, it's just for fun, but it's family.
That's so sweet. And so were there what did you guys play today?
Today was a lot of Beatles covers. Like 8 days a week. I saw her standing there. We did some other bird stuff like Mr. Tambourine Man. I don't know if you know that one. And rock some. Give me some lovin'. I think that was in Blues Brothers. I mean, I can't remember, but uh,
Wow.
yeah, just a variety of songs, mostly Beatles. I'd say like 80% Beatles because my dad's a big Beatles fan. There's the Beatles back there.
Oh
It's
my gosh, yes.
a
The
submarine.
Yellow Submarine, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so yeah, mostly Beatles stuff, and then we just jam. We do covers, and then we'll do some like rock solo jam stuff for fun. But yeah, I mean, he's the one who got me into it. He's the real musician in the family that started this whole thing back in Holland. And
Whoa. In
yeah,
Holland?
yeah, so he was born in Jakarta, raised in Holland. And there's like he's a Dutch Indo, and that's the Dutch Indonesian, and they have a strong guitar culture there. So he was in a bunch of bands over there, and made his living doing that before he came to America, where he became a one-man band once he was here. Oh, and he made an album here as well. I brought it just in case. This is
Love.
that's him.
Wait, what? That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's him. They shot in Santa Monica, so pretty nearby to us.
It's so like just aesthetically beautiful too, and like so cool, right? Like it's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's
So,
amazing. That's your dad.
yeah, it's really, really, I'm really lucky. And then he made a living doing parties. He did private parties and events and stuff for 30, 40 years. And so yeah, and because of him, he got me into music. I mean, forced me, I should say. I didn't like music initially, I should say that.
Oh
I
my
was
gosh.
not into it because, like, in order to be good at instruments at the level that he'd want me to be, you have to start really young. So I started playing piano when I was 3. And at that age, you don't know what you're doing. And so I was not having fun getting up at like 6 a.m. just to do scales and stuff. And I wasn't this is kind of funny. I didn't know till third grade. So yeah, I didn't know till third grade that everyone didn't do this. I thought everyone got up in the morning and did music in the morning.
Oh
And
my
then I
gosh.
asked my classmates, like, how are your lessons this morning? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, your music lessons, what do you play again? And they're like, we don't play music. I'm like, is it just me? And then, yeah, no one in my grade played music. And I was like, it blew my mind. I thought it was so part of my life growing up. I just thought everyone did it.
Right.
And I didn't like it till much later.
Oh, that is wild and so trippy to be like, wait, this is not everybody's
That's
norm.
not everyone's
Like,
life. Yeah.
but at the same time, so cool for your dad to have this like vision for your life, I guess, because
Yeah.
we need those coaches to push us to that next level, right? Especially at 3 years old, probably not
Yeah.
going to innately, unless you're some sort of prodigy, maybe get up at 6
Oh,
in the morning and just like hammer out those scales with complete diligence. I don't know many 3-year-olds who can
oh,
do
it wasn't me that I didn't want to do it. I thought it was schoolwork. I thought it was what every kid had to do. So I'm
not
like, this is my
again.
job.
That's so funny. And I think what was it? Dutch Indo is the
Yeah.
so Dutch Indo guitar playing is going to be a great Google deep dive for anyone who listens to
Oh
this
man.
and also wants to learn more because I'm
Uh,
now very curious, but I'll save that for another day because I really
oh,
want to make sure that I properly introduce you before we get too deep
oh,
into
sure.
the
Yes.
epicness. So this is John-Reid, songwriter, producer, and I'm so excited to have you here. So grateful that you would take the time to share your story today, John-Reid. So
Having
just
me.
before we do anything, thank you for being here.
I'm so excited to do this. This is so fun.
Yeah. So we teed off a little bit already, but I love to spend a bit of time, even a lot of time in that like growing up period of someone's life. I mean, we're always growing up, right? But like those like little person years of our life. So
Yeah.
where were you situated? What were you enjoying when you weren't at 6 a.m. doing the scales? Like paint a picture for me if you would
Yeah.
of what life was like for you as a kid.
Sure. Well, I mean, as I alluded, like I didn't really love music at the time. I grew up around music. My dad loves the Beatles, as I mentioned, and we listened to like West Side Story soundtrack a lot and just a bunch of oldies. And so like I remember I was the only kid in seventh grade that knew who Simon and Garfunkel were, and like all these like really different folk bands from the 60s and stuff, because my parents loved that music and they're a bit older. My dad's 73 and my mom's 66.
Mhm.
So they're a bit older, and so they have different references in music. So growing up around the house, they'd always have these oldies playing, and I just assumed everyone knew them. But for me myself, like when I went through my entire up through middle school, just playing whatever they put in front of me, never really loving any of it. It was just kind of schoolwork for me. It was like a thing you do. I didn't hate it, but I was like, it's fine. It is. And then I was fortunate enough to get into this performing arts school called LACSA, the LA County High School of the Arts. And completely lucky. I should not have gotten in. I was not good enough to go there. And I got in for jazz piano. I was one of like two jazz piano players in my year. I
Whoa.
That sounds impressive, but I was like so lucky. Like it was just I had practiced this one song for like a year and a half that was very impressive. And in the audition, I did the audition stuff and they were clearly not impressed, like the judges. And at the very end, they're like, well, is there anything you want to play? I'm like, well, I failed this. I might as well just play this one song I know that's super jazzy that I've been practicing for a year and a half. And so I did that song and they were like, whoa, wait a second. They walked over and looked at me play and they were super impressed. Now, the thing is that should be known is that like a good piano player, like at that level, like the other guy who got into Locks the same year I did, he could have learned that song in like 2 weeks, like maybe. Like it took me a year and a half to learn it. So like I was so lucky to get in. But anyway, once I was there, I had to commute to school, and my dad got me an iPod Nano, which was 2 GB.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
back in the day, and I had nothing. I only had my dad's Beatles albums to put on there, CDs, and jazz. So that's all I had. And then my friends looked at it and were like, "This is kind of a sad iPod." It's like you have jazz practice albums and the Beatles. Like, do you have anything modern? Like, I don't know anything modern. And so my friend gave me some Linkin Park CDs, and that was the first modern music I'd really heard, other than some stuff on the radio. That was the first modern music that I like listened to a full album, and I'm like, oh, not everything is the Beatles, not everything is like 60s groove. So that really opened up the world for me. And then in my last year of high school, because I still was not in love with music, I wouldn't say. I said I started to appreciate it more. And I got a lot better because of the school was so good. Not because I was anything special, but because the school was really
Yeah.
exceptional. And in my last year, there was this, it was called Tech Lab. And in Tech Lab, they're supposed to teach you how to produce and stuff. And what more was, it was basically free time with a recording software, and you could just write songs, write whatever you want for 3.5 hours a day, or 2 days a week, I should say. So like 6 hours ish a week. And you just write music, and you can do whatever you want during that time. And I learned about Logic, which is the program I use to record. It's called a DAW, a digital audio workstation. I hope I got that right. And it's like Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton. There's all these different programs. The reason why I bring it up is because through Logic, you're able to record all these instruments like bass, cello, guitar, whatever it is, with just a keyboard, with your MIDI keyboard. And I didn't know that was a thing, and it sounded really good. And I was finally able to write entire songs by myself from start to finish with all the instruments. And I was like, oh, now I get it. Now I like music. So
Wow.
it wasn't until like senior year of high school that I like, it was like, oh, actually, I love music.
Wow. So that made you like music because you got to be in control of all the different pieces coming together, or
Yeah.
am I understanding that right?
A lot, largely, yeah. I mean, I started to appreciate it more once I heard other bands, starting with Linkin Park, but then it shot off into a million different types of bands. There were rock bands like Alter Bridge. Mute Math was a band I really liked. There's Noisettes. There are a lot of bands. It just kind of, spread out, the roots and the limbs. But it wasn't until then that I'm like, oh, I actually want to do this. Like, I want to be a part of this world, until I actually started writing. I was like, this is something that I really enjoy, rather than just being like a hobby and a thing I had to do because my parents wanted me to do it.
Right. And but I think it's so cool. And there's something really powerful about like sticking with something, even when you don't yet like know that you love it. Like, I feel like I've been reading or hearing like our generation, is jumping around a lot, maybe
Yeah,
profession wise. And
100%.
it's exciting to feel like you have a lot of options. But if you don't stay rooted anywhere, then you don't have a chance to excel in anything. And if you don't get the chance to excel, then you can't come to love it, because a lot of things maybe you come to love because you're really good at them, right? Like you become someone who has a cool ear in your case, maybe, or like a different sort of appreciation because you've been around the Linkin Parks, the other bands, whatever it may be, versus but you need to sit in the Beatles or sit in the Scales for a while before you get to have that
Definitely.
moment of like, oh, this is love. Like I do deeply care
Yeah.
about this. And so that's really special, I think, in your story.
Oh, totally. I mean, being able to, I was lucky I had my parents forcing me to stick with music, because that's like not a thing that, stereotypically that parents would want their kid to do.
Right.
And yeah, and I got so lucky that I stuck through it, because it was hard at first because I was not trained in jazz piano. So when I went to the school for jazz, and they were day one, I remember they're like, okay, we're gonna do an F blues. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm like, what is that? I know what F is. I could hit an F chord. What is an F blues? I had no idea.
Right.
And it was standard knowledge amongst all the other musicians in the room. They all knew exactly what to do. They're like, oh, F blues, it's the most basic thing to do in jazz. We could just start. And I'm like, I can hit the same chord over and over again, and that's all I can do. So I
Right.
went to the other piano player. I'm like, what the heck do I do? What's an F blues? Can you write this out for me? And he thought of me as a rival at that point. We became friends, but he thought of me as a rival.
Oh my
So like
gosh.
a little bit like, I don't want to help you, but he was great about it. But yeah, man, it was really rough. Like the first like 2 years, I'd say, was really rough, when it was just jazz, and I had to really play catch up. But I knew at that point that going to that school was unique. It was like a special opportunity. And I wanted to, and I always saw it as like, I don't think I would regret going for something, even if I fail. Like,
Yeah.
'cause, like, I could always go to my local high school. That was always an option if things didn't work out. So I was
I
like, I'm gonna give this a shot. This weird high school with all these arts. It was so mind-boggling. The arts, people were wearing clothes that were not cool. People were walking around in like tutus, and what's it
oh,
called, the thing that the actors wear. I can't remember what it's called. The black sheer thing. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, just very creative, weird hippie school. And it was a
my
mind,
gosh.
yeah. It
And you
just made
got to
me,
go
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I think that was really brave though, because I don't know, me, I'm a bit more of like a type A sort of perfectionist person. So in your case, it seems like you saw that you might fail and you kind of embraced it. And for me, like I've gotten to that point at sometimes, but I'm often, and I remember very distinctly in college, like which classes am I least likely to fail in? And that's the one I'm
Yeah.
taking because I
Oh,
can't stand failure. But on the flip side of that, I think my college version of your idea of like, okay, if this goes wrong, I'll just go back to my whole school was okay, if this goes wrong, which was business school for me, I'll go be the pioneer woman. Like I would watch Food Network and be like, I'm gonna be this cook on a ranch. I'm gonna just move to the middle of nowhere and race won't matter. And I'll make like really unhealthy steaks for ranchers and it'll be wonderful. So
that's awesome.
I like having that backup plan thing that like helps you push through. I'm like, there's other things. This doesn't have to be it, but I'm gonna try. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that we get to enjoy your music because you pushed through and
Oh,
got
I'm so happy I
the
did.
education. I want to understand a little bit more about that moment of the audition and everything. So you had been practicing music. It sounds like a lot of it was at the earnest of your parents, right? Or at their motivating you. Did
Yeah.
you go into that high school season, wanting to go to such a specialist school? Were you at that point bought into it? Or were you like, I don't really want to go to this audition and I don't really care how it goes?
I was excited because I knew it was something special, and every kid wants to stand out in some way.
Yeah.
So the fact that that it was even an option was exciting for me. It wasn't really the music part for me. It was just like, this is something different. This is, there's that whole like, especially when you're young, not as much anymore, but like I'm the main character. This is my story. I get to go to this like special school. And because in middle school, I swear there's not a brag in the way it sounds. I was the best musician at my middle school, but that's not saying much. As I was saying, I did not know what I was doing. It just, what's that big fish, small pond kind of thing. So I didn't think, I didn't have a big head or anything like that. I did not want to give the wrong impression. It's just that like, I was like, oh, this is a path that's possible for me because I'm a little bit different than the other students here. I have a different musical background than the rest. So I can go in this different path that could be pretty cool. And once I learned about it, my teacher told me about it, and I was like, and I had a friend that was going, and I'm like, this could be something really special. Even if I don't really care about music, it's like I have to commute there. Like I have to like take a train to get there every day.
Yeah.
And it's on college, well, it's on a college campus. So I get to experience what college life is a little bit like. So I get to go to college libraries and classes and stuff. So I was just really like excited about that vibe. And yeah, I guess it was just, I didn't want to miss an opportunity that I thought like I would regret later in life when I was older. Like, what if I had tried, you know?
Right. I think that's so special. And it does sound like the experiences surrounding going to school itself, like you said, the commute, the location of it, that really added to the novelty and the
Yeah.
meaningfulness. And that is would be such a sad thing to pass up.
Yeah. And the thing is that also like on a side note, my even though my parents wanted me to do music, especially my dad, they did want me to get a degree as well. And they knew that going to a different school like this that had a very high matriculation rate would be wonderful. It's like built-in extracurriculars, built-in, resume builders. So they were excited about that. They're excited for me to get a college experience. So that was like a side, bonus in addition to doing the music stuff. So I was able to get a little bit of college, and I got college credit by going to that school.
Love it.
I
Oh,
was so lucky. They gave me Cal State LA credit for going to the high school.
oh my gosh, that's so special. Oh, so cool. I have to look at this school more. I wonder, what is that TV show that's not iCarly? It was something
I don't
like,
know if you're referencing Fame. Is that a different?
was it on Nickelodeon? I don't know. It was like a teenage show. A girl who might have, I'm gonna have to look this up. Oh, Ariana Grande was in it. Um,
Oh, it
and they
was
were
like
like at a school for talented people. Like, I wonder if it's loosely based off of your school, like,
that was a little bit after my Nickelodeon era, but there was a TV show called Fame High that a lot of the older generation know. I think it was from like the early 80s, maybe. And Loxa was kind of, I won't say based on the TV show, but like I think there was some inspiration there because it was I think it was founded in 1985. And in fact, because of it was such an interesting thing, there was a documentary made about our school when I was there. It was so cool. I got to be in a documentary. I think they called it Fame High, now I think about it. I think
whoa.
the TV show is called Fame, and then the documentary was called Fame High. And it just followed the lives of four kids, including the other piano player in my year. And it follows their lives going to Loxa for a year.
That's so trippy probably to watch.
Yeah, so I got to see myself on the big screen. I mean, I'm a background character, I'm a supporting character, but it was
You're
cool being, yeah, it was cool being there. And then like years later, I was a teacher. I taught high school history, and one of my students saw me on Netflix because it was on Netflix for a short time. And they're like, "That's Mr. Steenkamp. What's he doing in this documentary?" So
oh
that
my
was cool.
gosh.
But
That is
again,
wild.
background.
But all the fun things that people could dive into, should they want to learn more than the scope of this conversation. So that's so exciting and thank you. Um, this is like also tangential, but I love to learn little new like terminology and stuff. And you mentioned, I don't know, it was like F jazz or jazz,
Oh, F blues.
F blues. What is F
Yeah.
blues? Like, is
Well,
there a way to describe that to a
yeah,
layman?
I think so. I mean, F is just a reference to the key. So you have all these notes on the piano and they repeat. And F is just one of the main notes, and that you're just saying that's the key we're playing it. So so everyone can be on the same page as to what sound they want to make.
And then
Uh
are they just like riffing off of that? Like
in
when
this case,
everyone
yeah. So a blues is, there's something called a chord progression where it's basically, in any song that it's on the radio, you have verse and a chorus and so on and so forth, and they have repeating chords generally. So it's like a chord being two, usually three or more notes played together at one time. And so a chord progression is just a series of chords, just like reading a book, just a bunch of chords.
Mhm.
And in jazz, what you do is you take a certain number of chords, whatever it is, and you just repeat those same chords over and over again. And then after you do like the melody, like the main melody, like think like any song. I can't. I think I'm blanking on a song with the solo. But they do the main melody, sing the song, and then this big middle part, you have the solos, and then everyone just does different solos. You kind of go take turns. You have a trumpet solo, piano solo, whatever it is, and then you come back and do the melody at the end, and there's your blues, and it's just these 12 bars you just do on repeat, and then you solo over them. I'm throwing a lot of terminology. I'm realizing now because I was a teacher, so I'm thinking like, man, I gotta scaffold this better. Like I gotta
Oh no,
like
you're doing great though. This is
I mean,
awesome.
yeah, I mean, basically, is just a very common progression that everyone knows. If you think of like Chuck Berry songs, or Beatles songs as well, BB King, a lot of those really old songs with the guitars, those bluesy songs, a lot of them use the same chord progression, the same chords over and over again. And so it's so common that in music world, if you say a blues, most people know it's just these three chords, and we're just gonna solo over it. We'll have some fun, just jam onto those three chords. So I'm sorry, that's I don't know how much sense I'm making,
No,
but
I love that. And I think that's just enough to like pique our interest as people without
yeah,
context so that next time I hear a BB King kind of song or something like that, I can hopefully like start to notice a little bit more that
sure.
repetition of the undertones.
Oh yeah.
That's very cool to look forward to. Ah, okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so we touched on your high school experience. What was the next step from there?
So that was a little bit odd because even though I really loved music and I wanted to do music and keep writing music, I didn't know if that's what I wanted to, if I could make a career in that or make money in that. And my parents already wanted me to get a college degree. That was like the minimum, is get a bachelor's so you have some backup, you
Right.
know. And so from there I did went to community college for a year. Luckily because between the Cal State units that I mentioned before and my AP classes, I actually was able to skip a year. So I went into college as a sophomore. And
Wow.
then so I spent 1 year community college, and I transferred to UCLA as a history major, education minor. I've always loved history and education, so those are the things I took.
That's
And,
awesome.
and that whole time, I was still writing music. I was still recording. My parents bought me a nice computer to record music with, and then after I got my bachelor's, I really loved my education minor. I was really into it, and I'm like, I kind of want to get a master's in this. Like, I just want to like I want to finish off this part because it looks interesting. Actually, initially I wanted to get a PhD, but then I went to this seminar and they're like, "Why do you want a PhD?" And I'm like, "I'm not sure." And they're like, "Is it because you want the doctor title?" And I'm like, "I think that just might be it." And they're like, "That's not a good reason." I'm like, "You're right. That's not a good reason for 6 more years of
Wow.
study and going into like debt for for just to have basically bragging rights. So I'm like, what's a good in between? And so I'm like, I want to go for a master's. And like that's a good balance between the two. And as part of I went to grad school at UCLA again because I really loved UCLA in my 2 years I was there for undergrad. So I was like, I want 2 more years there. So went to grad school for education and still doing music the whole time. But one of the parts in your second year of grad school, you have to teach full time in order to get your master's, and you have to do
Wow.
like in-person teaching. So I ended up teaching in Cleveland High School in Reseda. It's in the Valley. And I taught US history. And then after my first year there, I'm like, I can't leave after 1 year. That's kind of weird. So I'm like, I'm going to stick with this for a while. So I taught US history for 4 years, still doing music, but I was kind of like, maybe I'll that could just be a hobby. I don't need to do it full time. But then around year 3, I was like, you know, I could always teach. Like that's something I could always come back to if I really want to, but I'm only gonna be young for so long. I only have my youth for this short amount of time. And in music industry, getting in later is difficult. It's possible, but the younger you are, the easier it is to get in there
Yeah.
and learn. Honestly, like the younger you are, it's the easier it is to learn. So I was like, I'm gonna do 1 more year, and then I think I'm gonna use my money that I saved and invested, because I didn't spend any of the money that I made. So I just invested it all, and at the time the stock market was doing pretty well. And so I'm like, I'm gonna fund myself for a while and just try and go for music and see what happens. And then of course my parents are very generous with helping me with they'll buy me food and help me with rent or whatever it is I need. And
Yeah.
they wanted me to do music anyway. They're very supportive of that. So I quit teaching, even though I did love it. It wasn't for me long term, and went into music, and I've been doing that for 3.5 years now.
Wow.
So it was a lot harder than I thought it would be, and that was my mistake. I didn't realize how much I had to learn still. So
It's a beautiful journey though. A lot to be learned always, if we're listening for it, right? Or we're receptive
oh
to
yeah.
what's to be learned. So that's so cool. And always a great situation to have supportive family. So it sounds
Oh,
like
they're
you
the
have really
best.
special parents.
Oh, they're A+, the best parents ever.
Major shout out right here. That's
Yeah,
so
no,
good.
they are the best.
Love to see that, love to hear that kind of thing. So you taught high school level, you said US
Yeah,
history?
yeah, yeah.
And I think that's really cool too, because teachers are such important parts of our lives. And it sounds like it was something you were really impassioned about. Was that subject matter particularly interesting to you, or would you have been willing to go into any classroom and teach that thing? Like, and then like within history, is there a favorite US history thing that you geek out
Oh,
about?
oh my gosh, so many good questions. I would be happy to teach history. I've always just loved. I've always been kind of like I call it the trifecta: a nerd, dork, geek.
Oh my
So like
gosh.
all of the above. And I've always liked history because I like stories and I like fantasy, and history is the closest we have to, like, it inspires fantasy.
Mhm.
So, and the stories are so entertaining to me. I find them just amazing. So I chose history, but I also really love English, and I also really love biology. Those would be my second two. I could not teach math. Although funny enough, in high school, my senior year, they had senior awards, like best whatever. And I didn't get an award in history, didn't get an award in English. I got outstanding calculus student award because even though I'm not good at math, but I can follow directions. So
Love
I got a good
directions.
grade, even though I didn't know what I was doing. And I helped out other students with their tests. I've lost all of it. I can do algebra 1. That's the limit. Or, 8th grade math is where I peaked.
Yeah.
So anyway, point being that, yeah, so US history was just the thing I felt I could do the best. And I felt there were the most jokes in there because I really like humor. And it's so visual. Like there's so much content that you can share with students with videos and documentaries. And YouTube has been so great. There's so many fun videos about US history now.
Wow.
And I was able to do so many cool things, like do different war games with them. And then I adapted a board game called Ticket to Ride. I adapted that into, like, the westward expansion and stuff. It was really fun. I really love teaching US history. I definitely wish I could do it again. And as far as favorite, like, era, there's something fun about every part of US history. There's some crazy person or crazy factoid, about everybody, like every president, every like there's so many crazy things that happened. random fact that's sticking in my head right now is not useful, by the way, for knowledge. No, I would not. This is not going to be on any test, but John Quincy Adams potentially believed in mole people underneath the earth, and was willing to fund an expedition for people to go search for these mole people. But then he left office. He was voted out, and then like it didn't get funded. But that, I don't know why that's sticking in my brain. But that's
That is a very fun fact, though.
oh, one more. Sorry,
Yes.
randomly. Abraham Lincoln was like a super strength, fighter. Like he was a wrestling champion and he could throw, they say between 700 and 1,000 pounds, like 10 feet or whatever, 20, I don't know how long, but he was like a super buff dude. He was like a giant, and yeah. Anyway, oh, he had a really squeaky voice. I don't know if he's usually portrayed with a deeper voice. And one of the things that the movie Lincoln did pretty well with Daniel Day-Lewis is he had like a higher, kind of softer voice. Anyway, I'll just remember random facts for like an hour, so I'm gonna stop.
That is great self-control, but like I love random facts. So this is great. I can't
Oh,
wait to share
good.
these with my family, with friends at the next dinner party. It's gonna
Yeah,
go well, and I will cite you appropriately.
I got everything right because it'd be embarrassing if I got those wrong. But
Oh, no, I'm sure. But I think too, maybe there's a future teaching era for you in like the YouTube realm, right? Like you might not be in the classroom, but we all need, I think for my cohort, it was like Khan Academy. I don't know what we learned on Khan Academy, but that sounds familiar. Um,
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe there'll be a YouTube channel of teaching
oh
with
yeah. I
these
mean,
fun games.
yeah, no, someday I would love to somehow get back involved in teaching without having a classroom full time. Like an after school program or like you said, like some sort of YouTube type class someday down the line. That's a goal of mine. And adapting some of my lessons. They have this great website called Teachers Pay Teachers where you can sell your lessons to other teachers.
Ooh.
And yeah, maybe do something like that. I don't know. I really love education. I just, man, it's a rough job. And not because of the actual teaching, it's everything around it. It's the grading, like literally grading for like papers like stacks like this. I can't even fit on the screen, the height. Because I'd have on average around 170 students a year. And you're supposed to do at least 2 assignments per week. Usually would do more. And you do the math, it ends up being over 10,000 assignments a year to grade. And not even just grade, but also input into the system and everything. And it was just so exhausting. And I don't think I can do that anymore.
Yeah, I cannot imagine. Like when you put those numbers to it, it really helps you contextualize all the work that happens outside of like hosting a conversation with 20 teenagers.
Oh, my classroom average was 41. So it
Oh,
was
my Lanta.
it was huge. Yeah, every year I'd have a class of 45 to 48 but average around 41 students a class, and with so many different backgrounds and learning levels, like it was a lot. I mean, but that was the part I loved the most was the interacting with the students and helping them and stuff. That was the best part was the actual teaching. It was the stuff around that just got really because I was to segue to connect to music a little bit. I identify as an ambivert, as like a mix between extrovert and introvert.
Mhm,
I'd say I'm naturally an introvert, but teaching, I feel like you kind of need to be an extrovert in a lot of ways to get these kids to pay attention.
mhm,
And my theory was always in the classroom is that they'll never meet my excitement for history. Like my excitement's here. They're never going to be above me as far as the excitement for history, but
right.
that'll be the upper limit. So if I can get them, in this level, that's good. But if I start down here in an excitement, they're not going to get above that. So like I got to start way up here and be outgoing and act like I'm an extrovert for a while. And then anyway, it's one of those fake it till you make it type things. Eventually I learned to be outgoing, but
Yeah, but that's such a cool thing to keep in the back of your head, whether you're a teacher, whether you're facilitating a group, like, you're hosting a party, your energy is probably the ceiling if you're the host,
huh,
or if you have some level of responsibility for it. So I
I
love that as
definitely
a good reminder just for life.
yeah.
But I do, so you went from teaching and then you said sayonara to that for now, at least. I'm gonna do music, pursue music full time. I'm wondering if there were any takeaways. You said that was like not an easy thing to do, right? That was a tough choice to make and a very like also brave one. I'm wondering if anything, as you kind of found your rhythm in the music full time life, if there are any best practices from teaching that you took with you, maybe like structuring a schedule or, go wherever you want with that. But I'd love to hear, how that teaching life plays into your music life now.
Yeah. I'm honestly bad at schedule. Like that is one of my weaknesses. Like I can do it when I was a lot better when I had, students to take care of and I had to do it for myself. I really need to work on that. But as far as, I mean, so many lessons as far as like interacting with people, and with students and finding out what people love and being able to try and get them to grow that in music helps as well. Finding other musicians that are interested in and fostering that and getting, and then you work together and you build off each other's energy to be musicians. But also honestly, researching. I know like it's not really teaching specific, it's more just school specific. But one of the things that I had to do a lot when I was learning US history, my first year of teaching US history, I was not a US history specialist in college. In fact, I almost took no US history classes because of my AP credit and my Cal State credit. I didn't have to actually take many because in the history degree you have to take US, European, and then other, just like rest of the world.
Right.
And so I'd already had the US stuff done. So I was basically not focused on US history for like 3.5, 4 years. I took a couple classes, but not many. So I had to learn US history as I was teaching it. So, added on top of the grading pile, I would be reading all these books on US history, just volumes after volumes, and trying to get a well-rounded, knowledge base. So I wasn't like, because history is very subjective in how it's told,
Sure.
and a lot of history is told from the top down, like the great men history, rather than from the people. And so trying to get all the perspectives and different views, because you still do need to know the top down history. It's not like you can ignore that. And so anyway, my point in saying all that is that in the music world, trying to learn about approaching music production from different angles and different backgrounds, because the thing is, there's no 100% right answer when it comes to music as far as production goes. There are opinions and dominant forms and best practices that people believe in, but however, a lot of songs that you hear that made it like hits, a lot of production engineers, they frown on them because they don't really like the way it was produced. Famously, a lot of people hate one of Shakira's songs. I can't remember which one it was. Might have been
Don't say
Waka
it's the hips
Waka.
don't lie one.
Not Hips Don't Lie. I remember which one it was, but anyway. But that's not to say the song's bad. I have no problem with whatever the song is. The point is that people in general may not care about the production, but the production people do, and they have best practices. But you learn like, well, that song still made it, whatever that song was, and they didn't follow best practices. So what worked about that song? We can't just go to the experts and listen to their criticism. We got to see what made the song work outside of the production. It's a fun melody, it's a catchy beat, whatever it is, and there's no right or wrong answer to that. And so learning to take sources from everywhere, just learn from everybody and everything you can, and don't try and dismiss people just because they're not doing the dominant form, or they're not talking, what the mainstream thing is. You can be more creative in music. You can do so many different things that may or may not, be right, but if it resonates with people, that's the important thing. The technical part's not the be all end all. It's nice to be technically correct, but if you're connecting with someone, no one cares if like the song is not perfectly balanced. If it hits them, it hits them. And so that was just, I'm rambling, but basically just taking from a lot of sources, learning from everywhere, and trying to apply the best of everything you learn, and not closing off, sources of information.
No, I agree. And I think that was all so valid and useful. So I'm appreciative
I'm
of
glad.
that insight, because I think it takes, uniquely having your foot in these two different worlds of the teacher and the music and the history teacher specifically, to have that insight of the layers of the music and the perspectives. And I don't know that I would perceive music in the same way without having spoken with someone in those two places. So
Sure, yeah.
awesome.
Well, I'm glad something comes out of it.
Yes. So I would love to hear more, if you would, about your style. Was it your style to music, already formed in high school? I know you talked about that technical, having that free space to like
Yeah,
combine all the noises of music together, but would
yeah.
you say that your specific style of combining those noises was solidified in high school, or did that come later? What is all that like?
I mean, jazz is just it's a great jumping off point because it gives you such a strong theoretical background. I mean, so is classical, they both do. But jazz in some ways, classical people hate if I say this, jazz in some ways is a bit more creative. Classical, there is something of a right way to play. There are the right notes. Whereas jazz, it's not even something that I always enjoy, but jazz has, you can do other things. You can try and push the boundaries of what music even is. And a lot of the stuff, it gets really new agey and it's not really my cup of tea, but the idea that the rules are there to be broken, you have to learn the rules first. And once you understand the rules and the theory, you can kind of push on different things. And then you realize, oh, you can just do whatever you want. You're not stuck into one thing. And so having the jazz background kind of, it made me think, okay, if you could push in jazz into different, push on these rules in jazz, how does that apply to rock? How does that apply to folk? How does that apply to singer-songwriter or pop music? What can you push on there? Like, what's something that is not, what is a rule that you can kind of bend and still be pop music and still be rock music? What can you add? What can you take away and still hold on to some of that structure? And so I would say and being introduced to so much music in high school with my friends giving me a lot of suggestions, and then me going on, man, I don't think this exists anymore. It's called Rhapsody. It was like pre-Spotify. And just like going through all the like clicking on similar artists, downloading everything, and then just listening to all those things on my iPod and seeing how there are crossovers in the genre and how different genres connect. And then being like, okay, well, what if I took like an accordion and put it in a rock song? How does that sound? Or whatever it is, putting like electric guitar over a folk song, whatever it is. And then, and not all the ideas are good, by the way. Sometimes you're like, there's a good reason that rule exists. I should not have done that. That was bad. But, I think that cross-genre, cross-pollination is the style that I don't even want to say I go for, because it's not on purpose. It's just the thing that kind of evolves. Because I always like to say, I always write whatever I just listen to. Like the artist that I am currently listening to, that's the style I'll write, but it's not like I leave everything else behind. So like right now I'm doing like almost like a folk, something, a little bit of jazz, African drums, and like a folk song. But I don't forget about the harmonies of a pop song. So I'm putting a pop harmonies in this song. Anyway, point being that I just love music, and so whenever I hear a genre that excites me or a band that excites me, I want to write in that field. But because I like all this other stuff, I want to bring all that stuff and put it in here as well. And
Yes.
so I'm like doing some like cross stuff. And anyway, yeah, I think it's just the genre mixing is my style, and that could be a weakness though too, because if people like a song, I can't always be like, well, if you like that, listen to this other track that I did. Because I'm like,
Oh,
oh, it's kind
interesting.
of the only one that I did like that. Like that's my only song with a rock guitar, like a rock guitar solo. This other song I have is kind of R&B, and I have this like singer-songwriter song that's nice, or whatever it is. And here's a jazz song, here's a jazz ballad, if you like that. But if you like the rock song, you might not like the jazz ballad. So I don't know. It's as its pros and cons, is what I guess I'm saying.
Sure, but I think so it sounds like, what's really a unique feature of your music making is that the continuity is in the desire to be, like, creative or, like, out of the box or, always pulling together unique parts, and
Sure.
so that is a challenge where the outcome is not, in surface level, like, the content is not the same from song to song, but the brain behind it, like, the heart behind it is something that if you appreciate it in one song, you should appreciate it in the next one too.
Yeah, I remember my dad saying, "At least your voice is the same in these songs. Like, at least there's one thing that is, some continuity." But even like back in even the Beatles were already doing that. Some of they had some experimental stuff, and
Wow.
genres. It goes back a long ways. I'm not trying to say I did not invent the genre switching thing. There are so many people who did it better than me, but I like it when I listen to an album, and as I go through, I am surprised by the next song. And there are some artists that I really like, by the way, that I think are very talented, but they stick to one style. And once as you're like halfway through the album, you're like, okay, I think I get it. I don't think this is gonna change much. Um, like I think she's great. She's very talented. But I was listening to Nora Jones's album, Don't Know Why, that's one song. I'm like,
Yeah.
that song. Let me listen to the rest of the songs. I'm like, okay, they're kind of all in the same vibe all the way through. And it's not to say she can't do other things. She's wonderful. It's just that the albums that stuck with me the most were the ones where I didn't know what was happening next. And every song I got, I was like, oh, this is its own piece. This is its own thing.
Yeah.
And that always hit me. So anyway.
That's so cool. It's kind of giving me an analogy of like a really good restaurant, right? Where not everything is the same dish, right? Everything is a different dish. And if I'm going to be satisfied with the restaurant, it's because I'm going to like each dish that they serve and be surprised by it or whatever. I don't know. For me, that's helping me make sense of what you're experiencing, but very cool. So um one of your recent works was called Ambivert. Like,
Yeah.
is
No,
a
that's right.
title that resonates with you? I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
love to hear more about that.
I mean, it was kind of a compilation of like, I think it was, I forgot, it was 6 or 7 songs. It was just songs that I've been working on for a long time. And my girlfriend and my parents were like, you have to release something someday. I'm like, you know what? All these songs are very different. Ambivert kind of has that in it, has introvert, has extrovert. I'm gonna
Mhm.
put this all in one thing and then release it and just see how it goes and see what that feels like. And I'm really proud of it. It was earlier on in my production, so I'm still learning how to produce stuff, but I'm very proud that like there are multiple genres in it. There's rock, there's jazz, there's pop, and there's singer-songwriter. There's a little bit of a touch of a lot of things. And I'm so happy that I was able to release it. And the title song Ambivert is about me being at parties, specifically like family parties, and the kind of the weird paradox isn't the right word. There's another word, the contradiction of I would rather be on stage doing music for everybody rather than being in the crowd talking and conversing and being social. To me, that's how I hide. I hide on the stage, even though it seems like that's the most outgoing thing you can do is be on a stage and perform for people. For me, that's how I separate, and I can go over here and just do the thing that I like
Yeah.
without having to do small talk that I don't feel as comfortable with. And so that's what that song is about. It's like, it's just me. I'd rather be up here, like, singing and rocking out and doing music and entertaining people than being in the crowd, being awkward. I mean, I would run away from parties. I remember in college, went to a club once with friends, and I just got an anxiety attack of just like, I don't know what to do here. I can't be in this space. And I just like left without saying bye. I'm like, I'm sorry. I feel really awkward right now. But anyway, yeah, the song, the themes are kind of everywhere. The genres are kind of everywhere in these 7 songs. I think it was 7 songs. And I like that because for me, whenever I go through it, I always feel like I don't know what's gonna happen next, especially if it's on shuffle. I'm like, oh man, okay, I went from this hard rock song, and now I'm gonna hear like an acoustic ballad about death and the afterlife and stuff.
Wow, that's so fun. So I'm thinking that a lot of artists maybe they want you to listen to the songs in the order that they're written, right? Because they're telling like a story in that way. For you, would you recommend people listen on shuffle?
Yes, you know what? That's a really
That's
good
so
point.
fun.
Because the thing is, that's a really good point. Because like, and I do this. I'm working on an album right now that actually does have a bit more of a flow. It's all very pop positive songs. It's the most cohesive sound I've ever had. But anyway, but this one, you're right. They're all very different, and there's not really a strong like continuation in that way. So shuffle would work and that's the thing. Also, going to the flip side of the negative of having genre switching and not having other songs that are like it. If you dislike one song, there's a chance you might really like the other one.
That's
If rock's not your thing, I got jazz. If jazz is not your thing, I got pop. Pop's not your thing, I got singer songwriter. Like I'll find something that I that you like.
that is
So
that's awesome though. That's such a cool opportunity for people. So keep listening, keep
yeah,
shuffling.
give each song a shot because I feel like each one really does have its own vibe. There are a couple songs that are similar here and there, but I really don't think that it's it. And that's one more side thing. When you have a band and you're in a studio, you're somewhat limited because a guitar player only has so many guitars. Bass player only has so many basses. Drummer only has so many kits they can play on, maybe 2 kits at a studio or so, and you get something of a similar sound throughout, and that's not a bad thing. I really love bands, obviously, Beatles and Linkin Park and all these bands, they do a lot of similar stuff too that I really love. But because I do things digitally, because I create everything from here, I could do a different drum set in every single song, and different synths, different guitar sounds, different bass sounds. So I'm not reusing a lot of the sounds. So each song will have a different flavor. I'll use a different piano. Sometimes I use an upright piano, which is like, you know, the small ones that you see in the corners of classrooms and stuff. Or sometimes it'll be a full grand, a concert grand, and you're hearing like a beautiful, like, you know, symphony type song.
Wow.
And it's just so cool that I'm able to do that. And it's not to me, it's technology allowing me to make sounds using just this keyboard and just these drums. And I can make an orchestra. I could do a string orchestra right here.
Oh my
And
gosh.
sounds pretty good, I think.
I wonder
So,
what the Beatles would say, what they would have thought about all this cool
oh man,
technology that we have now.
I am blown away because when they first started, they had the four tracks. So they would double up, you know, like, you know, you would record the bass and the drums in the same time or whatever. I don't know exactly how they did it, but I remember my dad was so excited. I forgot was he upgraded from a 4-track. I think it was a 4-track to an 8-track. It was like, whoa, we've got double the tracks. What are we gonna do with 8 tracks? Like, how do we do that? My tracks now, like, I would say on average, like I'm using 30 to 40 tracks a song. And it's not 30 to 40 instruments necessarily, but 30 to 40 different sounds or different production things or voices, whatever it is. And I'm so much respect to the people who did it before the digital age, because that's magic. Like the ability to do all those analog, you know, things, it's so impressive. And if the internet did not exist, if technology did not exist the way it is right now, I could not do this. Just could not.
Wow.
Like, so lucky, you know.
Yeah, what a special time to be alive and in music. Is the tool that you're using now the same one that you used in high school?
Yeah, largely, yeah. I mean, it's a newer version, so I don't want to get too in the weeds of the technical thing, but the DAW I use is called Logic, and it's Apple's music software, basically. Their pro music software. And you got to think of it kind of more like a host. It's almost like the box, and then in that box you can buy all these plugins and sounds, and you put it in that box, and then Logic runs all those separate things together.
Wow.
So it's a similar thing how video editing works and stuff like that with plugins. So I'm using the same software box, but the plugins are I've upgraded since high school. The sounds have gotten better. Excuse me, sorry. The sounds have gotten better since high school. So I've been buying sounds that are more realistic, more professional sounding, that could pass for more realistic, you know, like as if, because the goal is that I don't want you to know that it's all digital. And if I did my job right, it'll sound like a real band in a studio recording this, not me just in my room right here doing it.
Oh,
And
cool.
and to do that, I needed to you know, buy a lot better sounds. But that's the goal. I'm not saying I'm there yet, but I'm working on it. And I think for most people, I think they're happy with what it sounds like. So I'm happy, you
That's
know.
so awesome. It's to me, it's similar to like the switch or the addition of like the electric Mustang, right? It's still got to have like the motor purr, but it's got no oil. So I don't know how that's happening. So getting that noise to be authentic, I think matters a lot to like the traditionalist car driver making the switch to
Oh,
the more like eco-friendly option, perhaps. Um,
and ideally you would do analog, like, but it just money wise, honestly. Like my whole setup over the 3-4 years, probably under $5,000 to $6,000 altogether, which may sound like a lot. But when you think about all the sounds and the mics and all the interface and the computer included, the computer was a couple thousand. So when you think about it all together, it's not that much. Whereas there are the things that the plugins emulate, like a compressor and EQ. These are tools that we use in music. Don't worry about what they are. But to get one, a physical EQ or a physical compressor, they're on the low end $1,000 like each.
no way.
And I have, like, I don't know, like 50 EQs, 50 compressors digitally. And, you know, same thing. Ideally, if I could record a string orchestra, I would love that. You know, have a string orchestra, have, like, you know, real drums with everything mic'd up perfectly and a guitar player doing everything. But man, it's expensive hiring people to do all those instruments, and, you know, getting the right mics to record it properly and all that stuff. All of that takes so much time and money that, like, I just don't have that time and money right now. And so the next best thing is this digital world that is so it's so accessible compared to what it used to be.
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky. But someday, if I can make it in this industry, I would love to do everything analog and do everything in a full big studio with real instruments everywhere. That'd
Oh,
be the,
cool.
but for now, I think this is my level.
Well, I think it's so wonderful to not let the dream be canceled because the thing costs money, right? It's to find an intermediate option that I gets to act not only as its a standalone product, which it is and it's great, but also as the prototype for the bigger vision that you have. Like that's very exciting. And when you come to Carnegie Hall to do it, let your New Yorker audience know, like me, and we'll be there celebrating the cool thing. Um, I was going to ask, I guess, kind of to that point, like you talked a little bit about the classical performer versus the jazz performer, and I talked a little bit now about like the digital creation versus the orchestra in person. Is this like a contentious topic in the music world? Like when you talk about you are creating music digitally, how is
Yeah.
that received by your peers? Is that a hard conversation to show up to, or
No, it's very interesting. It's a great question because there is the old school that believes that analog has a specific sound to it, and it by the way it does actually. My dad, who like I said, is a musician for forever, he has his same speaker setup from like the early '80s,
wow,
and there's just this warmth to it, and you hear it. It sounds so good, and there's this like kind of a white noise, kind of a shh underneath it, and he bought digital speakers and digital equipment, and it was too clean. It was too sterile. It was perfect, but it was sterile. It didn't have that vibe. And so in the digital world, we try and recreate that with plugins. People try and recreate an analog sound. Uh,
wild.
I mean, and depending on who you ask, they've already done it successfully. Some people say they've already done it. Other people say no, they can still hear the difference. So it really is, kind of contentious. However, in today's world with R&B, hip hop, and pop being really the dominant music right now, the top 40 right now, those three rely so much on electric drums and synths and electric bass that you kind of have to do it with like digital instruments. And you can I mean, real synthesizers exist, like the physical synthesizers and stuff, but the sound difference is minimal to non-existent, and with synthesizers specifically. So you can, and so with like synth drums, like your hip hop drums or your R&B drums, you can't tell the difference. So you can't really judge someone for using those, because it's the dominant sound right now. So it really depends on genre. In the rock field, in rock and in jazz, definitely frowned upon. Like no doubt. Like if you go online and ask like what's a good guitar plugin or a virtual instrument, a good bass virtual instrument, they'll be like, just learn the bass, learn the guitar. And I'm like, well, I don't have years to learn a new instrument. So in the meantime, is there something that's close?
Wow.
And so, and I get it though. I totally get it, because it definitely unfairly gives what's the word, gives more priority and more relevance and weight to piano players, because piano is the easiest to do these digital instruments on. So if you're not a piano player, a lot of these virtual instruments are not as useful. You need to know piano at some level for a lot of them. So if you're a guitar player, and I feel bad, I mean, if you're a guitar player and you put so many hours into this and you need work, and then there's a jerk like me coming along, being like, I don't need to hire you, I could just do my thing here. I get it. And like I said, ideally in a perfect world, someday, that's my goal, is to hire guitar. Because the thing is, it does not sound as good as a real guitar player, as a real bass player. It just doesn't. It's good enough. And for the average person, and even me, I enjoy it as is. However, to get that real guitar sound, that real, fingers on string sound, you can't replicate that yet. So someday I want to do all real guitar, all real bass, but for now, this is as close as I can do and still be within a reasonable budget.
Sure.
So
I think that's so many important things that you have to balance and consider. And so, even when they get frustrated, we're all just trying to make it work, trying to show up. And there will never be the opportunity to have the orchestra necessarily if you don't first show up and do the digital thing.
oh, totally. I mean, just to hire a decent cello player is like on the lowest end $30 an hour. That is like dirt poor nothing money. If you were offer a good cello player $30 an hour, they'd probably say no. because they're a good cello player. So like, and that's just one instrument. If you want a quartet, you want 4 string players, that's on the lowest end, $120 an hour. That is like not dirt poor level. Like if you want like a good string quartet, hundreds and hundreds of dollars to record. And that does not include the mics, that does not include the mixing or anything like that. That is just to get a person in your house to play. So, it's prohibitively expensive if you don't have a label supporting you to do it. But if you're an indie artist, this is as good as you can get without having to break the bank. And the thing is, I paid for extra sounds, but if you wanted to, you could really, I would say you can get started with like, I'd say $1,500, and you can get started with a very decent sound, very solid, especially for if you're doing the R&B, hip hop, pop stuff, where digital sounds are a lot more acceptable. You could totally get in. And that's the great part about, music nowadays. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, it can be even less. If you own an iMac or MacBook or whatever, you already have GarageBand built in. That's a free DAW. That's like Logic's little brother, GarageBand. And if you have Windows, if you have a Windows laptop or a PC, there are free DAWs for Windows as well. The barrier to entry has never been so low. It's just that if you really want to get the great sounds, you got to pay. But like at the lowest level, anyone could jump in, and that's so cool that anyone can try and create their dream, in the technological, in the computer world, in the digital
Yes,
world.
so true and so good. And I think it's so cool that in your story, you were able to hone your skills in piano specifically so that you can tap into this
Yeah.
world. I think the next level of that I remember hearing from your story is that now that you've learned the skill of like tapping into this digital world, you're able to use it to help other people and like produce. Can you talk a little bit about what that has been like as part of this new chapter of your life?
Totally. So I'm really frugal, kind of a penny pincher. And so to go back just a second, to hire a recording engineer and a mastering engineer and stuff, it's a lot of money. And each song, it adds up. And so I'm like, I could just learn this. I think I could teach myself this. I have some motive background in this from high school. I can learn this. So I started teaching myself production. And that kind of became what I focused on for the last 3 years, really, was learning how to produce, myself. And then during that time, I realized I could produce other people too and make some money on the side and help people out. And so I only recently started doing that a bit more consistently. And I'm working with an artist named Giovanna Martinez. Uh, yeah, Martinez. Yeah. And she goes by Gio. So I know her by her stage name. And she just is releasing an EP. She just released a single last week, and that she recorded right here in this mic right here.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I did all the instruments and I did the entire backing tracks, and the song she released has a string orchestra behind it. So I made a string orchestra for her and some big, epic drums. And yeah, I got to produce her album. So I'm really excited. So check out Gio. She's a new artist. And I think on Instagram is Giovanna Martinez, I think. Very talented singer, very strong female voice. Man, like she can belt, like she has the strongest voice. And I got to produce her, and I'm so excited. And I'm producing a bass player that recently jammed with, and he's really talented. So yeah, I'm starting to grow into that world as a way to make some money incoming on the side while also doing my own stuff.
Yeah.
And I get to work with these great artists and really learn a lot, on the job, but also help them grow and see them, do and learn from them. Honestly, learn how, because I suck at marketing, and she's so much better at it. Like she's got photographers and like photo shoots, and she does these like little Instagram videos and TikTok videos, and I got to get on that. It's
It's
just so
so
cool.
hard.
It's cool they could do it, but man, I'm a little behind the times in the social media world.
Yeah, but so cool how each of you get to kind of show up with this extra hat viewer that's relevant to the industry, but somewhat tangential, and then like kind of mix and match them and exchange ideas and learnings. And it seems like a fun environment to be in, even though it's really tough.
It's creative, and we get to learn from each other, and we get to write together, which is fun.
Uh,
Uh, and I really like this is my proud moment. This is my slight brag moment. I get really excited. I get really happy when I get to show singers that I can take because they come in with a melody or a lyrical idea, a melody or whatever, and they're like, but wait, I don't know, I can't write for bass, I can't write for drums, I can't write piano, and then I'm able to build around the melody that they made, and make a song, out of it, and
Wow.
really fill out all the pieces, and then they get to hear this song in their head that like take it from a dream into a reality without having to know a ton about, the theoretical boring stuff,
Right.
and I can take something that they put their heart into but couldn't make it real. And the thing is, I'm so much cheaper than everyone else because I'm doing it all myself. It's only hiring one person versus,
Right.
a bunch of people. So just being able to see how they get to get so excited listening to their own song in reality, and be a real thing that they could put on Spotify and show their friends is exciting for me.
Yes. Oh, what a special, like meaningful experience that creates for that person to believe in that vision that they have for where they're going. That's so cool.
Yeah, no, it's really fun to, I mean, going back to teaching, I really love helping other people reach their potential, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So in teaching, it was getting them to obviously pass the class, but also hopefully, aim for a job or aim for a career that they love or are passionate about, and help them get there. And in music, it's a little more narrow, but yeah, same thing, helping people get to their dreams and seeing how talented they are, and just be in awe of other people's talent,
Yes, you didn't really leave teaching after all, maybe more to uncover in that arena. So as we start abstracting back out, and it's been so sweet to get to spend this time and learn about you and celebrate all this special community you're building and music you're producing, I would love to hear just in your terms why music matters, what keeps inspiring and motivating you to teach, to connect, to learn, to produce, all the things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just art in general is just such a good mirror and reflection of reality, but in a way that can either teach us or enhance it or augment our experience in life. Like art is what we like. It's what we live for. I mean, it's it's hard pressed to find people that don't like any art at all, like any movies, TV shows, music, visual art, dancing, whatever it is. And it's the flavor of life. It's the thing that gives life its excitement, I think.
Oh yeah.
And it really allows people to connect in a emotional way, express themselves, even if they can't do the music themselves. What feels better than finding a song where they say a lyric that, like, I've been wanting to like say that in my mind or see a person, and they said it, and I could totally connect with that, and be able to create that for someone else is really special. At least I'd hope. I don't know if I've ever done that, but it's something I'd like to be a part of, even if I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just gives you an outlet. Man, when I'm having a bad day, it's so fun to just be able to slam on some drums and just like get that energy out. And oh, and for me, making music, there was a day that my girlfriend was very depressed. She was sad about something, and I was inspired to write a song for her, and be able to take the emotions that come from that experience and put it into something and be able to present it, and it made her feel a lot better and made her happy and stuff and made her smile. And so being able to take an emotion and put it into audio and present it to people, it's special, and it makes me happy. And I think most people like music, and I want to make people happy. So
Yeah, I think that the kind of commonality in those different anecdotes you share is just this great sense of feeling seen when you listen to a song that hits you. Like that's really cool. And in that moment of sadness, like the song being able to be like, okay, like you are here with me. Like you do kind of on some level understand what I'm going through. Like that's a very powerful thing music can do. And I think I've been tinkering with lately, how do I spend the time getting ready to go to work in the morning, right? Am I listening to a TV in the background? Am I listening to music in the background? Am I sitting in silent? Not sitting, but like, am I moving around in silence? Is it a podcast? And music does hit in a really unique way, right? Like if you can have this inspirational kind of calming music at the start of your day, I think it does kind of have an impact on what the rest of the day is like and how you show up for the rest of the day.
soundtrack of your life.
Aspect of your life. That's where that comes from. So love that. Um, what sort of wisdom have you received along the way, or lessons stand out to you that you would share with someone else who's trying to maybe produce or write songs or be part of the world or just appreciate music in a new way?
Man, as far as appreciate music in a new way, just to start with somewhere, is listen to songs more than once. Oftentimes when you hear a song for the first time, it doesn't really hit you. And even as a musician or someone who's actively listening to it, it doesn't really hit me. And then things grow on you, and you start to appreciate the little things you hear and the words. You get to take in the words and really, take them deeper. As far as production goes, man, forums online, it's just a practical thing, just like Reddit and Reverb and all, or that's not a forum, but anyway, different forums that are online. Just like learn from everybody, try things out, experiment with with sounds, and see what works. And there's a lot of practical little production things, but those are boring. But yeah, no, just be open to learning from other people and listen. Like if you're going to get into production, you got to listen to what the pros do. Have what are called reference tracks. One of the number one things that people always suggest is whatever genre you're writing in, you got to listen to that music. You got to hear how loud do they make the drums, how forward is the vocal, do they have background, synths, do they use guitar, what do they do, what do the pros do, and just try and listen to that. You have to reference something to learn from. And so, look to the masters, but then make your own thing, of course.
Yeah. Oh, I think that that idea of reference tracks is a fun term that I'm going to end up using in other ways too. There's this idea in like faith communities, just like look, see who's running alongside you at the same pace with the same fervor. And like those are the people you need to invest in knowing, because they are the people who can hold you accountable. And I think that's what I'm hearing in the reference tracks, right? That's such a cool part of life that I want to hold on to. And I hope that I can remember following this conversation.
That's so cool. Yeah, we're all running alongside each other, trying to learn from each other.
Yes.
It's not necessarily a race. It's a journey we're on together, not a race.
Exactly. Holding hands, moving forward, just, dodging hurdles, making camp, all the good things in the journey. Finally, kind of like a two-parter situation. What do you want to make sure people leave knowing about you and your work? And secondly, can be related, doesn't have to be. What are you looking forward to right now?
Ooh, as far as know about me, I mean, I'd love you to listen to the music, but that's the main thing, I suppose. Is the only thing on Spotify right now is Ambivert, which is if you look up Ambivert and then John, I'm probably the only one that's gonna pop up. Or John-Reid is the full thing, but if you just get to John, that I'm sure it'll pop up. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want music to be about me, if that makes sense. Like I'm not trying to be like I have the answer to things. I just want to make things that people enjoy.
Yeah.
And uh, you know, it's not about me. It's about what can you take from a song. And that's the thing, like once like death of the author kind of thing.
Mm,
Like, the art exists, and what you get from it is personal. So it's not for me to tell you what you learn from what you get from a song, from my music or anyone's music or an art piece. It's what you interpret, what how it connects with you. And so I guess about me, just I don't know, listen to the music. I hope you like it. And I have a website, johnreeds.com. Yeah, I guess as far as looking forward, I'm just looking forward to finish this little EP I'm working on. It's relentlessly positive in a way that I've not written before. Just a lot of positivity in it that I didn't expect to write, but just that was happened to be what I was listening to, and everything's just very positive. And I'm like, okay, that's what the theme of this EP will be. I'll have a theme, unlike the last one.
and that
So
theme is something new for you. This is exciting. This is
yeah, I'm excited about it because I'm like I've never had something so cohesive. And also Ambivert was written like a bunch of one of the songs was from like 2012, so it's like a really old song. This was all song. My new one that's going to come out is all songs that were written in the last year and a half. So it's all shorter time period. Although some of our artists are like, we wrote our entire album in like a week. I'm like, that I can't do that. Like I need time to like really get into the weeds with each instrument. But anyway, and I'm looking forward to producing people. Like I said, I just really like making people's songs realities. The song that they have in their mind, making it real. I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to playing more with my parents. And yeah, I have so much to look forward to. I just gotta move forward and work. Oh, and I'm hoping to get into sync, which if you don't know what that is, that's getting music into TV and film.
Wow,
Uh,
that's gonna be amazing.
it's its own thing. It's its own whole field where you gotta contact these people and pitch your songs. Because one thing I've been told as I've showed my music to people is I could hear this in a TV show, I could hear this in a movie, or as a credit song or something like that. and I want to embrace that. And I love TV and film as well. So
Yeah.
like, if I can get music into those things, that would make me so happy.
Yeah, I feel like you're in the land where all those things combine. Like it's a very beautiful opportunity in California to just
Oh
go
yeah.
and be part of all the things. I'm very excited to see this new album. I think the more positivity we can get
Yeah.
in the world and spreading is a good situation, and excited just continue to watch from the sidelines and celebrate all the things to come. And I'm very appreciative again to have got to spend this evening with you. It was so nice to get to hear more about you, and really excited to share your story with this corner of the world. So thank you.
Yeah, this was so good. I was so fun. So
So
fulfilling.